Today we are diving in deep to a topic that's been circulating online. Mr. Beast, one of YouTube's biggest creators, is facing allegations from a past employee that claims that he's a manipulative boss and even a sociopath. There was this one video that we've covered that popped up from Dogpack404, who's also a former Mr. Beast employee, that kind of started this whole thing. And the second video has just come out where he goes and he interviews and meets with another former employee, and this is kind of where the drama continues. And we're going to give you all the details on what these accusations actually are and give you our take on it as well. All right, so this second video just dropped and it basically broke the internet. Like I said, 10 million views in less than a week, and everybody's watched it at this point. Grant, I know you've watched it, I've watched it. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of a summary on exactly what was in this video?
Sure. So the biggest thing is Jake Weddle was interviewed. Jake Weddle being the former Mr. Beast employee. He's very charismatic. He's got quite a personality. I believe he's a comedian. And he accused Mr. Beast of a lot of the things you just mentioned. Namely, the biggest thing that to me really hit home was the locked in a room by yourself for 30 days challenge, where Mr. Beast essentially is accused of violating the Geneva Convention, where this guy Jake Weddle agreed to the challenge, and if he stayed for 30 days, he made $10,000 a day, so that would be about $300,000. And during that time, he was trapped in not just an environment by himself, which is already psychologically difficult, but apparently there was a hot tub that didn't have filtration, and it started stinking and being gross. There was kind of other issues with the appliances there. But the main thing was Jake Weddle accused Mr. Beast of not turning the lights off so that he could actually get some sleep. And sleep deprivation is literally a war crime. It's a torture technique. And, I don't think Mr. Beast was actively trying to torture him, but it seems like Mr. Beast did have some kind of... He was clearly not being empathetic towards Jake in this really intense situation he was putting him in, locking him in a room for a month, even though he agreed to it. Shutting the lights off for 8 hours a day seems like it would be necessary for sanity. As the footage went on, as the challenge went on, some of the video editors the footage is haunting. Like, he seemed like he was starting to lose his mind. And then partway through the challenge, Mr. Beast comes in and he's like, now I want you to run a marathon on this treadmill. And so Jake agrees to run the marathon on the treadmill. His feet get all messed up. His legs are in pain. As you would imagine, running a marathon with no training on a treadmill, no less. The whole thing felt very dystopian and bizarre. So that was kind of the biggest thing, was Mr. Beast essentially torturing this former employee, despite him begging them to turn the lights off. And I think if he had just done that, I feel like that would have been at least a little bit of empathy, and it would be easier to not look at this and be somewhat disturbed. So that's kind of how I feel about the whole situation. Was like, it seemed like he agreed to a challenge, but there wasn't really any consideration of his mental health in a big way, to the point where he was essentially being tortured. And that's a lot. And that's only one aspect of the video, but to me, that felt like kind of the biggest thing.
Yeah, and they also mentioned that when they pitched him the idea, they kind of manipulated him a bit and said it's going to be the easiest money you ever make. There's going to be a hot tub in there. You're going to have access to all these great amenities. That's the part that makes it kind of wrong to me, is that they kind of tricked him into it. And just this whole situation just seems weird, where you got these people that really want to make it on YouTube and want to get into the business, and they need money, right? They're not getting paid much. And you're saying, okay, well, here's a challenge. It's an opportunity to make $300,000. And you go, oh, wow, $300,000. That'd be great. Yeah. And you're like, and then you put them in these like super tough conditions, and you're not like, taking care of their health at all. Like if anything, it should be the opposite, where like you should be looking out for them in these situations. And it's the video starts off with like this guy Jake on the street acting as if he's struggling with homelessness, and the creator Dogpack 404 comes up to him and goes, "Hey, what's happened to you?" Like he's dressed as like a police officer or something, and then this homeless man says, "I'm a former Mr. Beast employee," or something like that. And that's like how the video started. And I was like, oh. And Grant, you texted me last week. You were like, "Hey, a new video just dropped. You should check it out." And I immediately went and clicked on it. And I was just like, I just watched that first like 30 seconds of that part. I was like, oh, this is going to be crazy. And so, yeah, I mean, we talked about the first video last week, whether we're talking about, fake things in the videos and illegal contests and giveaways. This one's more about like neglect and abuse and manipulation of employees and people, which to me is worse. And like I said, this is all so bad because these people need money. They're doing this, and then you're like putting them in these tough situations. It's like when you go up to the homeless man. I remember back in the day, there was a very viral, I don't know if it was on YouTube or not, called bum fights. So this bum fights ones was they would go up and be like, "Hey, I'll give you $20 if you take these pliers and rip out one of your teeth," or something. It was like some super dark stuff. And these homeless people that were like, addicted to drugs or whatever, were willing to do that. And they would do that for like $20 or $50, and they would make videos. And it was like, this is kind of like, in a way, it's kind of on the same wavelength of that, although not quite as bad as that. But you can see these videos where these things are happening, where you wonder, like, who are these people that are doing these challenges and willing to stay in a bunker for 100 days or whatever? And this guy, talks about how I grew up poor. You flash a couple bucks in front of me, like I'm going to do it. And it's kind of sad in a way. But yeah, that was one part of the video. Why don't you keep going, and what else happened in this video?
Sure. So I think the point you touched on, I wanted to expand on that a little bit more, where about kind of waving money around. Obviously, like what Mr. Beast and his team were doing with not just homeless people, but also Jake Weddle, like not on the level of bum fights necessarily, but it still felt like there was a power dynamic where, society's crazy right now. People have student debt, rent's expensive, everything's expensive. I think is easy to have somebody do something that they would never otherwise agree to, because they need the money. It is, in some ways, it does feel like a real life Squid Games, right? A lot of people have debt. I think Jake Weddle said he had student loans, or at least was coerced into saying, "Thank God, now I can pay off my student loans," after he made that prorated amount of money for staying in the room for so long. It just felt like there wasn't an awareness of that dynamic where people are going to agree to things or like try to do their best to fulfill this challenge. And I think even if he had agreed to it, it's just so important to be mindful of like how somebody is feeling in that situation. Again, just turning the lights off, or draining the hot tub if it starts smelling bad. Like I don't know, just like taking care of your buddies, taking care of the people who are in your video. So as far as the other allegations, there was also talk of Mr. Beast hiring a guy named Delaware, who is a registered sex offender. Obviously, the audience is a lot of kids. So hiring somebody who has this attached to their name feels very odd. And then there was a tweet from the brother-in-law of Delaware who, to kind of sum it up, he says it's true. Delaware has these charges on his record. When he was 21, a 16-year-old girl accused him and others of sexual assault when he was 11. Delaware took a plea deal. That's why there was no jail time, but he had to register. His nickname isn't Delaware because he can't go back to Delaware, which is what was said in the video. He's from Delaware. That's why his name is Delaware. Apparently, not that that matters at all. But so his brother-in-law seems to be saying that Delaware is actually innocent. He expects the charges to be dropped. So there is kind of like some ambiguity as to like what is actually true here. And we don't entirely know. But the point is, with an audience that is mostly children, why are you hiring somebody with this on their record? It feels odd. And then, this guy was appearing in videos very occasionally. He would wear a mask. And then, according to the tweet from his brother-in-law, this was just kind of like they needed an extra person in the video. They were in a pinch. So they just had him be in the video, even though he was reluctant. So there's like a lot of weirdness around that. And it's just, I feel like things are still coming out. It's kind of hard to know exactly what's going on. We don't know what happened with Delaware in this situation all those years ago. It certainly doesn't look good, but, his brother-in-law seems to be vouching for him. So we'll kind of see how things play out. And it just, overall, I think this new video felt like more of a bombshell than any of the previous accusations. All the stuff with Chris DMing minors and kind of being inappropriate in general, that wasn't like that negatively affected things, but it felt more like that was Chris doing things and Mr. Beast may or may not have been aware, or maybe he didn't do enough, but it felt kind of more indirect, I guess, whereas these accusations felt very direct, even personal. And that's why I think we're seeing even more videos now of like, Mr. Beast is done. His career is over. It just like, it feels a lot heavier. And I'm curious to see kind of what happens after this. I'm not expecting Mr. Beast to go away or anything. I think it will affect his numbers. I think he's still going to be number one on YouTube for the foreseeable future. But I feel like his momentum is going to be greatly checked by this. And I'm also kind of curious how he lets this all play out. Like, does he respond? Does he say things aren't true? It feels like most of this is true. Like, as far as the violating the Geneva Convention, not turning the lights on, things like that. And that is disturbing. I think a lot of people are upset about that. And I'm just curious where the chips are going to fall here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm curious about too, because in YouTube standard format, there's going to be a reply video or a sorry apology video, right? But he's not going to do that. He'll do all of his like replies on Twitter or X, right? That's kind of the way that I'm pretty sure he's going to operate. You're not going to see anything on his channel that's like an apology video like Logan Paul did and stuff. I think probably because of the algorithm, honestly. I think he's only going to put out content that's going to go viral there. But we will see it on X. He already put out a statement on the whole Chris texting or messaging minors on his Twitter profile. It was pretty broad and vague, and definitely a PR person wrote it. But I am curious to see how it all plays out and just kind of, what happens. And I think he's just going to have to clean up his act a little bit. I think he's been just kind of being wild, wild west, do what I want, ask for forgiveness later. And I think now he's going to have to go a little bit more legit with everything, which kind of sucks because it's going to kind of make it more corny in a way for the viewers, I guess. But, maybe not. He's got this Mr. Beast Games is this new show that's coming out on Amazon, which, all this negative publicity is terrible timing for that, because this is like the first thing he's done off platform, off YouTube. And I don't think any episodes have been released yet, right?
No, not yet.
So we'll see if that even comes out. I know people that are in those videos some of those have been filmed, have came out and talked about bad conditions for contestants and stuff like that. We discussed that a little bit in our previous video. If you haven't seen that video yet, go ahead and head over to our channel and check that out for sure, so you can get kind of updated on this whole thing. But today we're talking about this new video that we know has this guy, Jake, but also there's some implications like, hey, video 3 is coming out. And, we talked about video 1. Today we're talking about video 2. And he said in video 3, he's going to be talking about a lot of sexual misconduct that happens on these game shows where, Mr. Beast employees are hooking up with contestants, and I don't know if there's any age discrepancies or anything like that, but there's just these new allegations that are going to come out. And I also want to say, just like last time, that we have to take all this kind of stuff with a grain of salt, because this guy, Dogpack404, he's released 2 videos. He already has like 600,000 subscribers. Both videos got over 10 million views, like in a short amount of time. The third one's going to blow up even bigger. And he's definitely chasing the clout right now and kind of riding this wave and trying to be some kind of YouTuber himself. So, at some point he's going to run out of things to talk about, and it's going to, we'll see where he goes from there. But he's definitely digging, he's digging hard to find allegations and stuff. So I don't want to seem like we are trying to throw Mr. Beast under the bus, because I think all in all, I think he does good work. I mean, from what I've seen, all the philanthropy, I hate that word, by the way, it's hard to say, but all that kind of stuff, he's doing good stuff. He's not like scamming people, like, with crypto stuff and all that kind of stuff. So, Grant, I guess in your opinion, how much responsibility should a creator like Mr. Beast have over the well-being of the contestants and the people that work on his team?
Well, I feel like on a philosophical level, if you're in charge, you're responsible for everything, right? And that is, again, that's like a very philosophical response. But I think a good leader always takes responsibility for anything that goes wrong and anything that goes well, while being, aware that the people under you are also responsible for what is going on, whether it goes well or whether it doesn't. So I guess there's kind of shared responsibility among everybody, but as the top guy, it really is your job to ensure that everybody is safe. That being said, everything that's going on with Mr. Beast, filming these incredibly complicated videos, bouncing between several different channels, doing, the philanthropy work, like, I think it's unreasonable to assume that all of this is Mr. Beast's fault, right? Like, you could perhaps accuse him of expanding too quickly and being negligent with everything that's happening. Like, he should have expanded more slowly, so that people would be safer. But also, kind of like we touched on in the last episode, I do feel like Mr. Beast, he felt the need to grow and grow and grow and grow as quickly as possible. That's kind of what people wanted. It's what YouTube wants, this kind of endless growth. And on some level, I think he did have to expand really quickly and up the ante every single time in order to stay relevant. So I think some of this, there is kind of an unfortunate reality of like what it takes to grow on YouTube. But also, he didn't have to go this fast, right? Like, if he had plateaued for a little bit, it then shot up, and then plateaued, and then shot up, like, that is okay. I think a certain amount of patience would have been fine. And then another interesting thing is Jimmy's pretty young. He's what, like 25?
Yeah.
And figure like I think Jake Weddle and all the allegations that happened in 2021, I believe, or even 2020. So, Mr. Beast is in his early 20s, probably, like, I'm guessing didn't have as much awareness of kind of the responsibilities that were on his shoulders. He may have assumed that, like, if somebody agrees to something, then it's all good. Like, he agreed to be here, so it's fine. But, like, it's not that simple, given, the financial situation of the world right now. And just in general, I think kind of dangling money in front of people, like, you need to be careful of the conditions you're putting them in, even if they agree to it. And I think there's a lot of nuance there that, like, if you're 23, 22, 21, you may not understand that. You may not understand the complexity of situations yet, especially when you're so busy running everything. And, it kind of, at least Jake, he accused Jimmy of at least a certain amount of pettiness or even like jealousy, kind of cutting Jake out of videos because he had too much personality. So one could infer that, like, putting him through this excruciating challenge was somehow personal, right? And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It's difficult to say, but I do feel like Jimmy being so young, like I think that's going to help him gain a certain amount of forgiveness for all of this. Um, and as far as kind of rebooting his career and responding to all of this, I think it really just depends. Like, does he change his video style? Like, does he make it more real? Does he focus more on having better conditions? Um, but it's also hard because he's talked so much about every video is kind of a gamble for him. It almost seems like the way that he's built everything relies on constant growth. You know, he's kind of doing the American corporation thing where like you gotta have new gains every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's not going to work. So I feel like in order to really change and address these allegations in a way where he's legitimately taking action, he's going to have to change the way his company operates fundamentally, because he can't rely on these illegal lotteries for money anymore. He can't fake videos and kind of exploit people, or not even air quotes, exploit people anymore. Like people are just too aware of it. So it's kind of like how do you keep the business afloat while doing the right thing? Like now he doesn't have the um kind of ignorance is bliss argument. You know, he's old enough to know better now. All of this has come to light. Like he knows how Jake felt. He knows how these people felt. So like, what does he do with it, and how does he do the hard work to remedy it? Because this is not an easy problem to solve. In his case, you know, to make this right, again, he has to fundamentally change how his company operates and how they make videos. And you know, making sure to dot all the i's and cross all the t's so that everybody's happy and safe. It's expensive. It is, like, so I'm curious how this all plays out.
Yeah, and you know, that's the question: is how does this all play out? What does the future hold for Mr. Beast and his company? You know, what lessons are going to be learned? What lessons can we learn? But one final question is, what do you think should happen to him? Do you think there should be some sort of slap? Do you think YouTube should hit him with some sort of slap? Do you think the law should hit him with some sort of slap? Do you think just people, the audience, should cancel him or hit him with some sort of slap? What does he deserve? Like, in your opinion, at this point with the evidence, let's say that all this is true, even though I know some of it won't be fully true, but let's just say it is.
Mm-hmm.
What should happen to
him? I mean, to me, I feel the court of public opinion is, there's like a truth that eventually bubbles to the top with that. It's very messy, but ultimately, you know, I don't think YouTube should take action against Mr. Beast. I don't think it makes sense for them to ban him or delete his channel or anything like that. I do feel like anybody who was wronged by him probably has a grounds for a lawsuit, right? So I'm sure he's going to be dealing with some lawsuits. I think that is going to play out in court. That feels fair to me. You know, as long as somebody was actually wronged by him, he will have to deal with a potential lawsuit or a settlement or something like that. So one, he needs to make it right with the people he wronged in any way he can. And two, I think, you know, his response to these new allegations is going to determine a lot. You know, does he admit fault? Does he, or maybe there's information we just don't know, and he sheds light on that, and we're like, oh wow, this actually isn't quite what it seems to be. So I just think people should vote with their views. Mm-hmm. If you don't like what's going on, don't watch Mr. Beast anymore. If you were wronged by him in some personal way, you know, maybe lawyer up. But I don't think he should be damned forever. I don't think he should be cast away forever. I feel like he has done a lot of good in the world. I think right now we're still figuring out like what is really true, what isn't. So I would like to see him have some kind of redemption arc personally.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because I just personally do not like the trend of this cancel culture. Like, it just seems like you have got to be like a perfect angel if you create videos on YouTube or social media. Like any slight little mistake, it's like, oh, he's canceled. Oh, he should be thrown in jail. Like it's just, like who's to say that these are perfect people and they're just angels? I mean, he's, from what I've seen, ran his career pretty well, trying to do the right things and stuff. And yeah, I just don't like the idea of anybody that makes a mistake, they can never come back from it. Now, if there's a pattern of mistakes, and that's something different, and maybe they should, face the lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. But I'd like to hear what the people that are still watching this video think. So if you are still watching this, you made it all the way to here, leave us a comment. What should happen to him? What's the ramifications of all these allegations? What kind of stuff should he be facing here coming up here shortly? And what do you think the future holds? That's the other question. What do you think the future holds for him? Do we see an apology video or some sort of reply video pop up on his channel? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. If you're watching there, if you're listening, you can check us out on YouTube, and you can also follow us if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other platform. And with that said, that's today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. We'll see you guys in the next one.